How we doing, everyone? Happy Sunday, and welcome to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I'm here with my guy, Idris. How you doing, man?
Oh, yeah. Wu-Tang Wednesday, baby.
Good to see you. We got the green and gold, or gangrene retirement, the many layers of the Aaron Rodgers saga. We're going to hit on that. A lot of NFL news that we're going to get into ahead of the free agency period. We got the Odell workout. About half the league attended that. Oddly enough, Zappy's Cowboys did not attend that. We're going to weigh the winner of the Bears and Panthers trade, and we got a lot of other NFL news and notes. We're going to talk about the formerly surging, now slumping New York Knicks, last night's NBA Classic, and some WBC results. We're going to start it out here with AR12. Oh, man. Kind of gives me the Brett Favre vibes for sure, Idris. You know, it's eerily similar. I think the difference is that Rodgers kind of wants the Jets, whereas Favre views the Jets as a middle move to get to Minnesota.
Right.
Do you think Green Bay's out of their head to entertain it, or do you think it's time for the trade?
I think it's time for the trade. I think with the Favre situation, Favre kept flip-flopping like AR12 is doing. Retirement, coming back. And, you know, they had this young quarterback just like Jordan Love. They want to get on the field, you know, and Green Bay was fed up with it, like, look here, we're going to move on. And I think it's the same thing with Green Bay. They're ready to move on. And I think it's best for both teams because you got this kid ready to start. They drafted him, you know. I mean, and you get fed up after a while. With the Rodgers stuff. I mean, are you going to play? Are you going to be committed? I mean, what's the deal? We gave you this money, but now you're still doing the same stuff you did before we gave you all this money. And they're just fed up. So I think it'd be best. I think it'd be good for both teams because the Jets have a good defense. They got a pretty decent offense. They just need a quarterback. And
all solid points.
Yeah, and I think with the draft picks they'll end up giving Green Bay, I think that'll show up the wide receiving core, you know, a little bit on the defense. I think it'd be best for both teams.
Yeah. When I think about what they have on defense, or even offense for that matter, what's good for the Jets is that they got their three most talented players currently on the roster on rookie deals.
Right.
Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and of course Breece Hall, who's going to be coming off that injury. I mean, they've been linked to other players too, and the thing that Aaron Rodgers brings, if he does indeed go to the Jets, I think this is going to be announced within the next 48 hours, to be honest, is that similar to Tom Brady, you're going to get, or even Peyton Manning for that matter, you're going to get veterans that want to be a part of what they're going to continue to build on there.
Yeah,
that's obviously a huge one, and I imagine that the Jets are going to be in the running back market on some level.
Yeah.
You know, recently Dalvin Cook, they're talking about him potentially getting moved from the Minnesota Vikings. Not saying that that's going to be their target.
Right.
But there are players out there that the Jets could explore because, you know, Breece Hall's coming off that injury. And while I think he'll make a full recovery and continue a promising career, you know, they're going to not want him to take the immediate workload.
Right.
You're talking about Super Bowl contender, man, and they get Rodgers.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. He's talking about Super Bowl contender. And with Favre going there, and with Robert Saleh as a coach, we already see Saleh's not going to play the nonsense. He's doing that with Wilson right now. He's like, look, you don't want to be here. You know, go read a book or something. But we're trying to build something here. Yeah. And I think New York is not going to play that nonsense AR12 is pulling. The media's going to eat him. But I also, with the flip,
he's got to do well.
Yeah. I think with the flip going to New York, I think players are going to want to play because they're like, okay, we got a quarterback who can actually throw the ball. And no telling who. And I mean, who doesn't want to really play in New York? As bad as our two teams have been, who doesn't want to play in New York?
Yeah, because up until this year, there wasn't really a lot of hope surrounding the two teams that play at MetLife. But, you know, the Jets won 7 games. They had some quality wins. You know, they had a win over the Dolphins, win over the Bills, win over the Steelers. You know, and that's without good quarterback play. And I think even the Jets could explore the option of keeping that Zach Wilson and see if he can maybe be mentored I don't necessarily think Rodgers, similar to the guy that he replaced in Green Bay, Favre, is going to be down for mentorship. But it's one of those things that, you are in the locker room, you are in film study, and you see how this guy goes about it.
Right.
Who knows? Wilson ultimately might be corrected and maybe could be a valuable piece. My gut tells me the Jets will move on from him, similar to what I always like to use the Kyler Murray, Josh Rosen comparison. But unlike the Favre move of years ago, I think that this is a deal where Rodgers comes to the Jets and Rodgers stays with the Jets until the end of his career, then probably signs, a one-day deal with Green Bay.
Yeah.
If he wins a Super Bowl with the Jets, it'll be a rare situation where such a short stint can lead to a jersey retirement. Obviously, number 12 has never been worn since Joe Namath. Namath has given him the green light, but you're talking 54 years.
Right.
Since this organization won a Super Bowl.
I think in terms of Zach Wilson, I'll be honest with you, I'd rather keep Mike White as the backup.
Well, it's interesting because I almost question if they bury Wilson, but to hope that he gets the education, while if a Rodgers injury should occur, White could come in because, obviously Flacco's not part of the grand plan. He's done.
Right.
And
I think that
Mike White showed the best of the three. He showed some grit in the Buffalo games. He showed some grit in general over the course of the last couple of seasons. So for a quarterback situation that doesn't have much, I guess we could agree that White would be the best, obviously, before getting a four-time former NFL league MVP. And, we talk about the bright lights in New York. Hard to at least not be flirtatious with this situation.
Yeah.
Odell Beckham holding a workout. Half the league attended. Dallas, to my surprise, didn't have reps there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily think that means anything. If Jerry wants to go out and pay this guy, he'll do it. What I found even more amusing, the Cleveland Browns were in attendance.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, there's no way he goes back to Cleveland. But then again, the way Cleveland throws around money irresponsibly, you never know. And they do have Deshaun Watson now.
They gotta be the richest franchise.
The stupidest franchise. Stupidest franchise. They completely reset a quarterback market. And, you got all these Giant fans crying about DJ's deal. I was like, don't get mad at the Giants. Go get mad at Cleveland. They set this up for everybody.
I just saw on Pro Football Talk where, Odell his asking price is in the 20 million range. And I'm like,
hey, man, I'm okay with people aiming high and then they get brought back to some semblance of reality.
Or you talk them down to you always aim high with your price, but his real number might be 18 or 17.
Right.
But still, that's a lot of money, man, for a guy who's been out of the league for a year.
2 surgeries on the same
knee.
And I'm not saying this because I necessarily want this, because about a year ago, not less than a year ago, about Thanksgiving time, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of hot for the idea of Odell coming back. I was playing the nostalgia game, what could have been. I mean, we did get Dexy in that trade.
Yeah, we did.
It wasn't all for naught. Jabril Peppers, a couple of good years. He was in New England. Looks like his career's on the downslide. But getting back to Odell, I'll be honest, the Rams don't make sense because of the fact that they're not going in a direction of contending. They just got rid of the great Bobby Wagner.
Right.
The Giants, I would say the Giants, it could happen because of the sheer fact that I think that if he's going to take a discount anywhere, it would be to play with his good friend Saquon Barkley. I don't think Shep is coming back at this point. If Shep wants to play somewhere else, I do kind of have the vibe that it will be elsewhere. What's that?
Then we avoid Shep's
contract? Yeah, I mean, it leaves the door open that they could give him something more on the minimal level.
Right.
But I just don't see it happening. I think the Giants are going to address receiver in free agency. Of course, the DeAndre Hopkins thing is a possibility, but my gut tells me DeAndre Hopkins will be a Cowboy. Odell Beckham Jr. might be a Giant if the price is right. Then again, you have other guys. This is a weird offseason because you have a Juju Smith-Schuster who could help a team like the Giants. Do I consider him a number one? Not necessarily, but I mean, shoot, even Gabe Davis has been linked to a potential trade, and obviously he enjoyed some of his best football under Brian Daboll's watch. So it's going to be interesting. But I guess from a notoriety standpoint, anytime Odell's name's in the news, it's something that you're going to tune into. My gut tells me the Giants. I think at this juncture of his career, he wants to solidify some form of a legacy as opposed to always being viewed as a mercenary.
I agree. I see the Giants or Buffalo still.
Buffalo would make sense. I could see him making a lot of sense there.
Yeah. So we'll see. You see Robert Woods signed in Houston. Got a 2-year deal, I think $18 million or something.
I'm happy he got paid because he's not going to win a lot of football games.
No, not in Houston. He's not.
No, but these guys got to look out for the future. They're talking about generationally setting up their families. And Robert Woods, another guy, he got a ring. People forget he was on that team from the Rams, and his injury opened the door for Odell. Yeah,
but he can still do work, But I think he just went to Houston, make a little money, and maybe down the line latch on to another team. We'll see what happens. But Odell, I see Buffalo, Dallas looks like the front runner. The
DeAndre Hopkins thing could set what a lot of people are going to look for. DeAndre voided his no trade clause by getting the suspension.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they could essentially trade him to whoever they believe is up in the best package. In that regard, I actually believe that the Dallas Cowboys might be in the best position to get him. Of course, you have a guy like Brandon Cooks, who I think is severely overrated because this is a guy that's always changing teams and always putting up comparable stats.
Always.
And I think it says a lot about who he is as a player because it's not easy to go to all these different teams, have a different quarterback, but still be able to play your game at a fine level. And I think that Brandon Cooks might be the most underrated receiver that can be changing addresses going into this. The Bears have a lot of money to spend. We're going to slide this over there now. Idris, I think the Panthers got fleeced over here, man. I really do. I saw your post. So thank you for, as always, doing your due diligence to promote the show. But, man, they got fleeced, man. Have at it. I'm going to give you my 2 cents in a second.
Where do I start? You already have a problem at quarterback. We already maybe.
I mean, they did get they do have a problem. You're referring to Carolina, right?
Yeah, Carolina.
Okay, heard. Yeah, Sam Darnold's not that dude with his second organization. We could agree on that.
Right. You don't have a quarterback, really. You just gave up your best receiver. Yeah. You already lost a few players already, and you want to draft a quarterback, but you've given up draft choices also.
And this is a very strange quarterback class coming out of college. Not a lot of sure things coming out right now.
So why do you want to bring a young quarterback because all the quarterbacks got major questions behind
them? Not to mention you traded CMC and you might not even bring back Foreman now because he's going to be entering free agency. A lot of teams would like to have him.
Yeah. So I'm like, so you're going to draft, you moved up so you can possibly draft a quarterback. And like I said, this class is not much better than last year.
No.
A lot of questions. So I'm like, what are you doing here? What are you doing? Chicago, I think Chicago, they basically broke into the house, stole everything and the toilet.
But something with Chicago that I like what they're doing. Zappy mentioned it on a previous show. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have Soldier Field in a few years from now is going to be a historic memory.
Right.
They're going to be doing something similar to their division rivals, the Minnesota Vikings, to take away the bad weather. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love me some weather that reminds you of the golden era. But when you're talking about like what looked like a friggin' typhoon week 1 against the San Francisco 49ers, that's just not pretty football,
Right.
But I think what I'm getting at is with all this money the Bears have and now moving back 7 spots, I really think that they're taking serious winning some football games. I think Justin Fields, with limited talent around him, really grew as a quarterback.
Yeah, he had a good jump from year 1 to year 2, and I think now they got DJ Moore, he has a receiver he can throw to.
Indeed. DJ Moore is a good football player. And, even though I'm not the biggest fan of his recent takes, Jaquan Brisker is a hell of a player on the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
He was awfully opinionated
on
Daniel Jones being trash. And I'm like, hey, buddy, he beat you twice to the end zone in that game.
Touch you in the brisket.
Yeah. And you be thankful that he rolled his ankle because we might have put up a 40 burger on you guys.
Exactly.
Good player, though. Everybody's
player.
entitled to their opinions. I'm not going to be all salty because I'm a Giants fan.
Right.
DJ's going to earn it, and he's going to prove it. Another story for another day on him.
Yeah.
But, man, Carolina, I really think they made a boo-boo. And I also said this off air. We were talking about potential coaches that could get canned early.
Yeah.
And your uncle's former teammate, one of the real good guys in the NFL, Mr. Ron Rivera, I think he could potentially be on the outs because of the fact that Eric Bieniemy, Washington, in my opinion, is showing some faith that he's going to be growing as a coach. A lot of controversy surrounding him with non-football situations. And, of course, with the Rooney Rule, with some of the inequalities in the hiring process, that also is something that will always be linked to people like Eric Bieniemy. We saw it recently, what happened in Carolina. Lovie Smith, even, he had a Houston Texans team that was very bad, playing very hard for him.
Think about that Carolina with Steve Wilkes. And this is not a situation where I'm saying why they fired a black coach. My thing is, why did you fire a coach who got the players to play?
That's the whole point in a nutshell, because we saw the Vegas Raiders fire an Italian dude for something similar.
Right. He
had the guys playing for him. They replaced him with the hot coordinator. The hot coordinator failed in Denver. We're talking about Josh McDaniels now. Yeah. Even Mac Jones, Brett's boy, he's been linked to a potential trade. Bill Belichick's not exactly Captain Optimistic with Mac, but I also think that if we're talking New England, I think something that is overdue with Coach Belichick is that he needs to put down the GM hat and just focus on coaching. They do have Bill O'Brien, a credible offensive mind, maybe not the best head coach. We certainly know that he wasn't the best front office man.
He was good. He was good at Penn State, but he was horrible in Houston.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for the New England Patriots. But Tom Brady's out of the league, so those comparisons will kind of fizzle out now to a level. Mac is going to improve. Oh, it appears that Zappy has woken up.
Hey.
Zappy's lying, by the way. This is a direct shot at our good friend Brett.
Right.
He got heated off there. What do you mean he's not going to improve? He didn't learn anything from that Derek Carr situation.
No.
Speaking of Carolina, just a name in my brain. Yeah. I could see Jameis Winston going there to be a middle-of-the-road Band-Aid to maybe – I feel bad for Jameis to a level, even though I'm far from a fan of his. Right. I just think this dude has managed to always be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
You know the thing about Jameis, man? He has a good arm. He throws a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. The problem is he throws a lot of interceptions.
Brett in the house. What's up, Bretsky?
Oh, man, we got Zappy and the great Bretsky. What?
Okay. Well, this is good. They're going to get into their own little argument as we continue to roll here. I like this. Other NFL news and notes. Idris, what are your thoughts on Lamar Jackson? Our good friend Quentin has frequently spoken about the possibility of him going to Atlanta, a team that owns the second most cap space, similar to what happens in the NBA, a franchise tag that is kind of like reluctant. It looks like it could potentially be a sign and trade.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, man? You think Lamar's going to ATL, or do you think he's gonna play on a middle of the road Ravens team?
I think it's a chance, but I think both sides kind of got things twisted. I think Lamar needs an agent because he's his own agent. Yeah,
I had this conversation with one of my friends super recently, and you make a good point, because when you look at what a guy like Deshaun got,
right?
I mean, that's like a rape and pillage of what he should have got. And I'm not saying that Deshaun's not a hell of a quarterback. I'm just saying that when you go through what he went through, and for them to have that kind of confidence, I think it was a desperate play on Cleveland's part.
But it's Cleveland.
But, getting back to Lamar,
Yeah.
You're talking about a former league MVP. It's very unfair that he's in a situation that he is, but it's a recency, what have you done for me lately league.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is this is a man who's won one playoff game. Some people will compare it to like, oh, DJ's getting this. What people need to understand about the Daniel Jones deal, it's a lot of escalator money.
Right.
And when they are giving people contracts, for the most part, it's what they think you're going to do for them, not necessarily what you did yesterday, because what a lot of football fans need to understand is that sometimes the best part of people's careers are when they are still on their rookie deals. I love Saquon Barkley, but his best year is still his rookie year of 18. He hasn't topped that.
I think also with Baltimore on their side, I think that franchise tag, if I was Lamar, I'm like, so y'all really think I'm not worth this? Because the non-exclusive franchise tag, I mean, like.
Yeah, that's pretty ballsy if you ask me.
Yeah, now they gave DJ the non-exclusive.
The problem why the Giants didn't do that was
I'm just saying if I would have gave it to somebody, I would have given it to DJ.
I think the biggest fear of the Giants and why they're happy that they were able to set up DJ with a deal, even if it's more than maybe some of us might feel, was you avoid that $32 million cap hit. Right now, DJ going into this particular season is making $19 million.
Right.
The Giants can make some moves in the coming week with free agency.
That's why our fans need to realize it's not what you think.
Like even with Golladay, you got knuckleheads that still think that he got all that money.
He didn't.
The Odell thing, when we traded him, Cleveland ate most of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And Odell put a lot of it, actually gave up a lot of it.
Give a lot of money, yeah.
To go play with the Rams.
Sure did, yeah. I think in the end, Baltimore is going to pay in more ways than one. I don't think Lamar is going to play like I just don't think he's going to play on that tag, because you see what happened last year. He went on and played and got hurt. So I don't think he's going to play this time.
And I know a lot of people are outraged that feel that Lamar's getting screwed with. I know in the past on previous shows, Brett has made comments about that. But it's like I already stated, I'm not saying that it's fair. I don't think it's fair that running backs are workhorses and get lowballed, but it's the trend of the NFL these days. Yeah. You take a guy like Barkley, he has to figure it out on the sense of like, you know what, man? I might get a deal, I might not, but my merch and my star stature here leads to other ventures where he can make a lot of money. But, you look at Ezekiel Elliott. This is another player that might be getting – oh, here we go, Brett. Yeah, Lamar may hold out. Yeah, I agree, Brett. I do agree.
If I was Lamar, I would. You don't want to take that chance again. Because if you get hurt again on that little cheap deal, Baltimore, like, see, you can't even stay healthy. So
and Baltimore has historically never truly paid, because even if you look at the Flacco deal.
Oh, they just threw Flacco out the door.
Yeah, and the thing is, once again, a lot of aspects of that deal was escalator money. Yeah. Escalator money meaning incentive late and stuff. A lot of people lose sight of that when they see the O's on the memes, or he's making more money than Patrick Mahomes. It's not exactly the way it always appears. DJ has a chance to make more money and guaranteed. But, part of the reason why the Giants put some of those incentives on there is because there are certain numbers that you can roll the dice on the floor and say, does he meet it? Right. In the modern era, DJ's touchdown numbers are very low for a guy who's played as many games as him thus far. I think there's a lot of variables that go into that. I think it's lack of talent around him. Up until recently, they didn't address the O-line. And I think it's also attributed to the play calling. I mean, it's funny. If we're talking about Jalen Hurts, everybody feels comfortable talking about total touchdowns. For some reason, DJ doesn't get that same luxury where people act like he's not in the top 5 in rushing quarterbacks, or that he doesn't have 7 scores with his legs.
Right.
I do find that semi-comical.
He rushed for 700 yards. I mean,
you got Giant fans crying and bitching and moaning, saying that Saquon should have been the first priority. And I love Saquon, and I have admitted on the show that he is my favorite player. You got
21
missed games, dude. 21 missed games.
You have to lock up your quarterback. Yeah, Saquon was a workhorse for us this year. Did his thing, and I think if he wasn't on the field, we may not have done what we did.
I tend to agree.
But you still need that. I don't think anybody else could have just jumped in there. And Tyrod couldn't stay healthy.
This is one thing that I'm going to throw at you. The Giants, since Daniel Jones has been a member of the New York Giants, they have only won 2 games without him. Eli's final game, and I'll be honest, Jones could have played that day. That was a way to pay the respect to Eli and give him an opportunity to win his final home game, which I think was the right play.
Yeah.
And he was injured back in 2020, and Colt McCoy beat the Seattle Seahawks on the road.
Right.
But don't they've won games without Barkley. They have not won anything without Jones. And you say what you want, but when I think about a guy who's always the first in and the last out, and he's the first guy in terms of just staying the course. Never once have I heard Jones bitch, moan, and complain about what wasn't around him. In that regard, I think he has the moxie to play in New York.
I think our fans want the high scoring, the 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. You know what? Just win.
Look at our history, bro.
Right.
Was Phil Simms that guy?
No.
Was Jeff Hostetler that guy? You can make a case that Collins at times had moments like that, and you could also make a case that Eli did. But let's keep into consideration that these are quarterbacks that were playing in a different era where passing wasn't in its infancy, or more so, because back in the 80s, the 70s, you built around your running back and you built around your defense.
The Ravens won a Super Bowl with a quarterback.
Oh, my. Yeah.
Thank you. Do I need to say any more? I don't care if he throws for 200 yards and a touchdown. If we win the game, I'm good.
Idris, we witnessed it ourselves in Jacksonville. He and Quan went for 100 yards each.
Right.
I do think that to a level it's overplayed, but I also think, and this is something that people need to understand, you look at year one where he had 24 versus 12, 24 TDs, 12 picks.
Right.
That was an offense that was suited for him in terms of the West Coast offense,
right?
Which was what Pat Shurmur was kind of running, something that Ben McAdoo left behind.
Right.
And in between that, you had some poor coaching and a lot of different OCs. A lot of instability, but I have every reason to believe that Mike Kafka, Brian Dable, Joe Shane, and on the other side of the ball, Wink Martindale, we have a nice little future ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. The first day, the first game, Dable let it be known. Don't
do it
again.
Yeah, he checked him.
And that was it.
Threw that pick in the end zone.
That was it.
and it resonated because, you got the results that you needed.
Right.
We're going to slide it over to baseball, the World Baseball Classic results. Still early in the game here, but the one thing that stands out to me very early is I am very impressed with the play of Venezuela and Colombia early. I would say the surprise thus far is seeing the Dominican Republic struggle out the gate. I don't necessarily think that's going to stick with them. They might turn around and just get real hot. And the Americans definitely have a shot to hang. And even Italy. Italy's been competing, and I also like what I'm seeing out of Puerto Rico early on. So,
Puerto Rico, man, look here.
The Netherlands. It was cool to see Didi Gregorius out there. Big Yankee favorite. I think for Yankee fans, the thing with Didi that's very dear to a lot of our hearts is that he had the unenviable task of having to replace the captain Derek Jeter. And I'll be honest, man, I don't think anybody could have done it better. The Yankees got rid of him at the right time. He was a fan favorite.
Yeah, he was.
But I must say that it is understated and not looked at enough just yet at how difficult that role could be to replace a legend like Derek Jeter. He did great.
I had Venezuela in my top 5, I think. I think I had the United States, the DR.
I know I had PR definitely competing. It's funny, man. They're not using they're using the standard bases. They're not using the Costco bases.
Right.
They're not running with that pitch clock.
Right.
And I do believe, I said this to Zappy on recent shows, that when you look at what's going to go on in Major League Baseball, this could be an issue.
Yeah.
In terms of, I said it, shaving 20 to 25 minutes off a game. who's bitching and moaning? The people that already watch the sport. I've said it a million times. You have to market the sport better if you want to get the most out of what you're selling. And I think Rob Manfred is just doing a little too much with just trying to oversell everything and change everything. As far as this tournament goes, I'm sticking with my previous prediction. I get it. The DR's off to a slow start. I still think they're going to emerge as the winner of this tournament.
I think with the clock, and me and a few baseball fans had a talk on someone else's page, and one person, younger guy, he said he liked the pitch clock. I mean, the other guy's like, no. I said if I had me a pitching duel that's going to go into 15 innings, 20 innings, or these guys at the base trying to, fake each other out, I'm cool with that. I
think it's still predicated off of baseball starvation to want to make sure that the game is faster because you're dealing with NBA, who has some of the best athletes in the world.
Yeah.
You're dealing with hockey, who has some of the best athletes in the world. And you're also dealing with the NFL, which is this country's favorite sport, not to mention soccer continues to grow in the States.
But I think
you also have your fighting, but whether it be UFC or boxing. So, baseball fans are a different breed. I will say that.
Baseball fans, I see them more as chess players.
Yes, sir.
It's a game where each sport you have to think, but baseball has a different level of thinking.
I tend to agree.
You got the manager thinking, you got the pitcher sitting there, you got the catcher, you got the hitter, you even got the guy at first base. Like, okay, everything is it's like a game of cat and mouse.
Thing that my late father used to always say when we talked baseball to each other is that he always told me this is the DH era, mind you. The DH is universal now.
Yeah.
But he always said in the American League, you don't really start managing until the seventh inning, where in the National, it's a chess from the second you start it up.
Yeah, it's right from the jump.
That's why they call it the senior league, because you have pitchers batting. But I get it for health reasons. You don't want to see your pitcher getting injured rounding first base after getting a hit.
Right.
You don't want to see a guy that's known for his arm getting hurt running the bases. It happened to Chin-Ming Wang. He was flirting with 2 almost 20-win season with the Yankees, and then he went downhill after that.
Even getting hit by a pitch,
Indeed.
You got your ace out there. Imagine Greg Maddux being out there today.
Yeah.
And he gets plumped. You're like
the accountant.
Yeah.
dude looked like a legit accountant. But back to the WBC.
Professor.
What I do like about what we're seeing is that to me it's still real baseball. I'm not trying to completely hate on this pitch clock thing. I just don't like to see sloppiness. And I think in the beginning, it's going to be like the first 50 to 60 games where everything's going to be very sloppy. We're going to slide it over to the hardwood. Our New York Knicks, after 9 consecutive victories, surge now becomes a slump. Yeah. It looks more and more detailed that we're going to be probably in the 5 spot, potentially the 4 if we get a little hot at the end. Yeah. My bigger concern, Idris, in terms of how far our team could go, I want the Boston Celtics to catch the Milwaukee Bucks and be that 1 seed. I do not want to face Milwaukee around 2. I've said it in the past.
Right.
Obviously, we're missing Jalen Brunson, which is a contributing factor to the slump. But my question to you, sir, can the Knicks get over the hump? Or is this just the same old Knicks that just master the game of inconsistencies?
I think we can, but we need Brunson.
Indeed.
Brunson is he's our quarterback, man.
Yeah, indeed. The quarterback of the floor general, no doubt about that.
Quarterback, man. He makes things move, man. God, it's hard, man. Because you know how we do. We'll look good like we did. We look good, had the 9 wins, and all of a sudden, and then we'll push it out again. We have to win at home, dude. Yeah. We have to win at home. Okay, we lost LA, but we have to win at home.
Right now, this bit of a slump is actually, occurring on the West Coast. But I can forgive some of this.
Yeah.
But when I see that you're catching a little bit of a slump, the game that's maddening is that Charlotte loss. Yeah, that should have been 10 in a row, and then these other 2 wouldn't nearly be as annoying.
Be as bad. But because, they let whip us, man. That shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I think the Knicks fell asleep at the wheel. It's a quintessential trap game. But from what I've seen of the Knicks this year is that they're going to go as far as Jalen Brunson takes them. So first, foremost, and always, we need Jalen Brunson healthy because we saw the bad juju super recently. Julius Randle, what was it, like 5 for 24 the other night? I don't want this guy playing hero ball. I've been saying it.
And that's
forever.
his problem. Even with the game with not Miami,
talk about the Boston game.
The Boston game, he tried to be hero. Like,
which we were fortunate to win because we almost gave that game away.
Yeah, like, dude, stop trying to be a hero.
But speaking of Boston, that's our best matchup. I think for the Knicks to get to the ECF, being that they're playing either in the 4 or the 5 slot, they're going to have to face the Bucks unless if the Celtics catch them. There's a little time left. Milwaukee's coming off a loss yesterday. This is potentially game of the year. This was my prediction going into the NBA season that I thought, when I think about how in the West you could be a lower seed, get hot. The Lakers tried to do it a couple of years ago. Lakers have reloaded. Could be a little too late. But the team in Golden State, they have the pedigree. We saw it last night. Truly a classic. And I say to myself, I'm like, damn. If these two make it, and I know that Denver is your pick and a lot of other fans' picks, but man, this would provide a hell of a series. And, Milwaukee's only 2 years removed from winning it all.
Denver wasn't my pick at the start.
Right.
But it was Golden State. And I'm going to stick with Denver because I did, switch to them, which I wish I didn't. Because I just got a feeling Golden State's going to do what Golden State does, man.
Hard to bet against them.
Yeah, it's like they're just sitting there like, man, let's stay in contention, in playoff contention. And when the time comes, then we'll start being the Warriors, come out and play. It just seems like that. Because look at last night's game, dude. I mean, they did Warrior things, man. Steph Curry, bam.
Yeah, every time it looked like Milwaukee had an opportunity to go on a short run and give themselves the distance they needed, Steph just wouldn't allow it. You talk about floor generals. And I've said on previous shows, this guy's a tweener between shooting guard, point guard, how he gets remembered in league history. Because, I'm a Magic Johnson fan.
Right.
I'm not a Zeke fan, Isaiah Thomas, but I respect his game. So when I think about the greatest point guards of all time, I'm always thinking about those two. And you got to do something really spectacular to jump those two. But I must say that Steph, now, second greatest point guard in league history, behind only the great Magic Johnson, as far as I'm concerned.
Then where does Russell Westbrook stand? He just passed Isaiah Thomas.
Well, I got a theory on Russ, and I'll be happy to share that.
You're facetious.
I know you are, but this is what I mean about different eras and the numbers.
Yeah, I'm being facetious, man.
Yeah, I question if the guy even won in high school, and I'm not trying to be a dick about it.
I know, man. I'm being facetious.
I know that. It's funny though. But I'm sticking with it. Warriors and Bucks. Warriors will win that series in 7 should they cross paths.
I'll stick with mine reluctantly because I want to go back to the Warriors. But I gotta,
But speaking of your recent pick, maybe talk about Denver for a second. It's been a little controversy stirred up. JJ Redick and Kendrick Perkins kind of going at it.
Yeah.
I don't agree with everything either one of these guys say, but one thing I do want to say is that Kendrick Perkins needs to be a little more responsible about how he calls out people if it's going to be derived and based on race, because part of his argument as to why it was race related, whether we're talking about the MVP voting for Jokic right now, or even taking it back to when Steve Nash won the award, I do believe that I would have a little more of a beef with Steve Nash. And it's not necessarily predicated off of race. I do believe that the late, great Kobe Bryant fell victim to some media slander because of an accusation made over an infidelity earlier in his life.
I agree, yeah.
I think over the course of time, Kobe Bryant just basically kept his head down, played the game the right way, and at the end of the day proved that he was a hell of a father and a hell of a husband. But as far as this Jokic thing goes, I think JJ just knocked him out of the water. Oh, yeah. He basically told him 18-0 when having a triple-double. If that's not MVP worthy, I don't know what the hell is. Perk, started it from 1990 up until the present day. And
Right.
JK called him out on that. He's like, bro, why so conveniently talk about 90? You want to ignore Magic Johnson not being in the top 10 in scoring, but being the MVP?
If you're going to do it, you got to go back. You can't just pick an era. Exactly.
And I would take it more serious if it was a different player, but Perk is a knucklehead.
You know what? It has zero to do with race. Even when Nash won it, I think it wasn't a race thing. Like I said, I believe I say what you say. It was a Kobe thing with the stuff going on, and it's true. Like when
and it's still wrong. Kobe deserved it.
Wrong. And like when Magic won it, not Magic. When Jordan won it, and they was giving it to other people. I think it was more like, okay, we got to give it to somebody else.
I tend to agree to a level with you on that one. And you know what it is too, man? I think it also came down to best records was a sell point.
That too, yeah.
Because the Jazz did have some great teams.
Yeah, and Perk's argument, I try to like Perk because he has gotten better in speaking. His public speaking has gotten a lot better than it was when it first came out. When he first started talking, like, what is this guy saying? He's a bunker, so he's gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still like, yeah, MB. I mean, who you pick is who you pick.
Yeah, but I'm gonna keep it a buck though. If Joel Embiid wins league MVP, there's something very wrong.
Yeah, the Joker guy. I mean, you got to give it to the Joker, man. I mean, the Joker is this guy.
Speaking of entanglements, Brett, you catch the last 6-7 minutes of the Chris Rock special, dude?
You got to watch the last 7 minutes, dude. Talk about entanglements.
Oh,
I don't always agree with Reddick because he gets on my nerves, but he's right, man. Reddick.
No, Reddick definitely gets on my nerves because you can tell that he's the type of dude that if you're playing cards or he always wants to one-up you with some kind of stat.
Yeah, exactly.
Analytically speaking, and like I said, I don't always agree with the guy.
But he's right this time, man.
I'm sorry. He made light work of Kendrick Perkins' side of the argument.
He roasted him. Has nothing to do with it. Doesn't have anything to do with race. If Jokic wins, Joker wins it. Joker's balling, dude. This guy's balling out.
Yeah, and not to mention, you gotta base something on the record. Yeah, dude. Like when is that? Why is that getting so devalued? Winning isn't winning the whole thing about all this,
right?
And I even said about some of the Jordan times. Jordan. The Bulls at that juncture, they were more prepared to be a team that was going to win in the playoffs, not necessarily because when they played Utah, the Karl Malone MVP year, Utah did have home court advantage.
Right, and look what they
Barkley
had.
won the award. Phoenix had home court advantage.
And look what they had. Those teams are loaded.
And ultimately, Michael Jordan proved why he was the best player on the planet.
You beat the two best teams played each other. You beat the best team, another one of the best teams, and you were the difference. And
let's not lose sight of the fact that during that era, Scottie Pippen was the absolute best sidekick because you might be the best player on the planet, which Jordan indeed was. But you can make a logical argument that Scottie Pippen, in addition to being, unfortunately or fortunately, it depends how you look at it, the second best player on those Bulls teams, he was a top 5 player in that league. And I think he proved his worth in 94.
When you think about the Utah team, they had Malone, Hornacek, Stockton, Russell, Mark Eaton. The team was stacked. Then you got the Portland teams with Porter,
getting out of the West back then was quite the challenge because
the Seattle teams.
I think the Bulls were the best team for the better part of those 8 seasons. There's always that great unknown. If they would have ran into the Rockets, what would have happened? It seemed like on paper the Rockets were probably the absolute best matchup, to knock the Bulls out. And I'm talking more like if Jordan don't retire and play in 94. That 95 season was a fragment in between 2 three-peats because they didn't have Rodman. They lost Ho Grant. There was a lot of other variables.
I don't think that Houston team would have won.
You really don't, huh?
You know why? I look at how they went up against the Knicks.
Okay.
And the Knicks was shorthanded.
I'll put it like this. They beat them in 94.
Yeah.
But in 95,
the
Rockets would have beat the Bulls. Because they also had Drex.
Yeah, you're right.
But they didn't have Drexler because I'll be honest with you, that NBA Finals, what sparked the ratings, and this is horrible to say this, was the friggin' OJ chase. Because this was like the first NBA Finals where you didn't have Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
The game was considerably slower because the two focal points of both teams' offenses were centers, Olajuwon versus Ewing.
It's Ewing, yep.
You saw a lot of
that year was crazy.
Yeah, you saw a lot of matches where you'd put a Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason, pretty much anybody that Knicks could put in a uniform to try to slow down the great Olajuwon.
That was those 98, 97 games, or 82, 86, 82,
Yeah, man. I mean,
the Mike Fratelli days,
Yeah, Coach Pat Riley went from Showtime to Crime Time. It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same kind of cast of characters. Those '80s Lakers teams are very talented. When you're talking about Knicks basketball in the '90s, it was derived off of stingy defense and damn near murdering people that thought they were going to try to dunk on you.
The Knicks, the Heat, and the Hawks. Because the Hawks, Mike Fratelli had the Hawks. Their defense was holding people to like 88 points a game.
And although the Bulls had the flashy 1-2 punch of Pippen and Jordan, don't lose sight of how good they were on defense either.
Exactly, right.
But that's what ultimately made them the best, and that's what makes Jordan the best. I always tell this to people. It's not the 10 scoring titles. It's not the 63 in a playoff game.
Right.
It's not the 69 in a regular season game. It's the fact that he was a two-way player that never took a play off, and his defense was damn near just as powerful as his offense.
Yeah.
Before we slide out, this past week that had just passed, the 26th anniversary of the murder of the notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
I talk about his impact just still being felt.
Yeah.
His impact still on so many different layers and levels, whether it is hip hop, whether it's fashion. I will say this, rap changed in those 6 months when Tupac and Biggie were murdered. I am not insinuating that those are the two greatest rappers of all time. What I am saying is that those were the two first rap superstars of all time. There's a difference.
Yeah, I think with those two, I think they were the two in terms of, it's hard to explain.
It was a weird time because when the West Coast was at its height, and I'm talking about when the Chronic album came out, not only were they running it in their own genre, but it's what essentially changed even MTV, because that is essentially when rap overtook rock.
Yeah.
And that was massive.
Yeah. Yeah, those two, it's a shame what happened between that 7-month period between him.
Oh, no doubt.
Pac went and then Biggie
went. There's so many layers, so many variables to it. I mean, to this day, you still have a mother who wants answers. You have certain people that tell sideways stories about what really occurred, and then there's always going to be that question: did Puffy really do him like that?
My opinion with Puffy, I think so. I'm going to tell you why, because 50 was talking about it, how all his major stars something happened to. Biggie, Craig Mack, Shine. It was somebody else in Faith Evans.
Oh, you can make the literally what we call body count of careers that have been just perpetrated. You look at the Locks; they showed up at Hot 97 and wanted to bring it to him. The thing that I ultimately see in Diddy, and this is very interesting, what ultimately started the real controversy. I mean, you can go to the Source Awards.
Yeah.
Little known fact, Tupac was actually on stage. A lot of people didn't realize that he was in the doldrums in the background of the Death Row logo. A lot of people didn't know that. You can feel the intensity of you watching it on TV at the time of just the heat between the two coasts. But in my opinion, what really sparked this was the situation in Quad Studios. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that Biggie being there was more predicated off of the fact of him wanting to keep tabs on Junior Mafia.
Yep.
Because of the fact that that was one lane of Bad Boy where he was protecting the publishing, where one of his ultimate goals was rebuying the publishing. When I think about the timeline, when I think about how Puffy's career blew up, and when I think about all of it and what happened to the Commission album, that thing just basically, there's just too many arrows and too many fingers pointing at Puff. And I'm going to take it a step further. I also think he was more than accidentally involved in what occurred in Vegas 6 months earlier. I'm not saying Keefe D is the most credible source, but there's too many arrows and too many things pointing to Puffy, not to mention his character is very questionable, for lack of a better word. But I will say this, 26 years removed, it's still one of the greatest underdog stories in hip-hop history when you think about that the guy maybe didn't have the best looks.
Right.
He was overweight. Even the guy that he had his biggest battle with, this dude was like the poster boy for Gianni Versace, talking about his big rival Pac.
Right.
But, the hope is that something is learned. Sadly, when we look at so many incidents that have happened, whether it be Young Dolph, whether it be Nipsey Hussle, whether it be Takeoff of Migos, so much has still pushed itself backwards. And, it gets my appetite wet for wanting to do yet another hip hop show.
Yeah.
And that will be going down in the near future. But I guess ultimately the message I'd like to make here is the Notorious B.I.G. was a true rags to riches story, which proves that never give up on your dream and always believe that you can do anything, because this man definitely changed the game and will always have his place, not only in New York rap, but in the entire genre. Mike Zappi just hit us with this. Yeah. Dolphins are in talk with the Rams on the right to acquire Jalen Ramsey. That is interesting. The trade is very close.
Wow.
Ramsey has – there it is. Jalen Ramsey is Miami Dolphin.
Whoa.
I like it.
Wow.
With Xavier Howard?
We need to talk about that on soon, very soon. Wow.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey is a Miami Dolphin. We have about a 7.5 minutes. We can speak on this for a second.
Let me say one thing on Biggie. I always see Biggie as those people who were put here for a short period of time to leave an everlasting impression. You got people like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the Big Bopper, Tupac, Biggie,
Richie Valens even.
Yeah. I mean, these people were just here for a period, but their legacy lives on. And with Biggie, he actually, I don't know if people notice, he actually wanted to get into R&B more than hip hop.
Well, you got to think, dude, he was overseeing a lot of the potential in that, because when you think about how R&B has kind of been watered down and pushed away to the golden stuff that we grew up on. I mean, you had some terrific girl groups back then. You're talking about your SWVs.
Oh, man.
Totals, Jade. That's just to name a few.
God, yeah, Brownstone, yeah.
Yeah, man. You had some incredible acts back then. Yes. And, it but I think Biggie saw the lane and saw the direction.
That's why I still feel Diddy has something to do with it.
Yeah, this is
what so many wanted to do.
Pointing to him, man, it's disturbing. And why wasn't he in London, man?
Right.
Gene Deal, who I have a ton of respect for, has never changed his story.
Nope.
And there's something to be said about that over so many years.
And with so many people saying that work, like, look, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, this is where there's smoke, this fire. Let's talk about Jalen Ramsey.
Trade was tight end, Hunter Long, and a third.
Wow.
Alrighty then.
Like having a little fire sale is starting to look like.
Well, this is the Rams we're talking about that basically sacrificed their future for a ring. And I'm going to say this in closing. Bad Boy Records, Puff Daddy, I still call him Puffy.
I do too.
Sacrificed one of the greatest rappers in the history of all of it for his personal bigger gain.
Yeah.
Ask Miss Wallace what she thinks. She'll tell you what she thinks about Puffy. Puffy's a snake. That is the worst kept secret in the hip hop community. We're gonna be back in the near future dropping an NL West show. We also have a movie show that we are going to expand on. We are doing various movie shows. There will be one coming as soon as possibly tonight. I'm going to speak to Idris off air and figure out what works best for you. We also may be potentially having a special guest joining the show in the near future. For my man Idris, I am Richie, and we appreciate you hanging with us on this Sunday, watching the show. If you haven't already, make it a point, like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. We are
Facebook
out.
Too.
On Facebook too, on Twitter too.
We're everywhere.
And also check out the Casual Convo Show. Undeniably one of the better shows out there that hits on everything from money management to relationships to social issues. It is an incredible show. Shout out to this guy right here, Bosco, as well as Miss Coco. Until next time.
Him, there's no me, y'all.
I kind of say the same thing, man. I mean, Christ, that was like the best interview I ever did. I had so much fun with that show. Yeah, go back into the archive, check out the interview. Bosco from the Bronx, an awesome interview. Until next time, he's Idris, I am Richie, and we are out for now.
Peace.